All right, let's jump into another deep dive. This time, we're tackling Tintin in Tibet.
Oh, a classic.
And you guys sent in some really interesting stuff for this one. We've got an academic analysis that really digs deep. We're going to be going way beyond just the plot.
Right, because everyone knows the plot.
Exactly. We're going to be looking at the historical context, the creation of the book, and some deeper symbolic meanings that I think are really going to make you see this book in a whole new light. It's more than just an adventure, that's for sure.
It definitely is. And one thing that I think is so fascinating about this book is that it was published in 1960.
Okay.
And that was during a really intense time for Hergé personally.
Oh,
He
really?
was going through some things, and he was plagued by these very, very vivid dreams,
Hmm.
filled with nothing but vast, empty, white spaces.
Interesting.
And those dreams, they actually directly influenced the book's visuals and its overall tone.
Wait. Hold on. Are you saying that those stark minimalist landscapes,
Yeah.
the Himalayas, the ones that make this book so visually striking, those came from Hergé's dreams?
They did.
That's incredible. I never would have thought of that. I mean, that just makes you think, doesn't it? About the power of the subconscious mind
It really does.
to shape creative work.
It makes you wonder what else is hidden in there.
Right. And it's not just the visuals either, right? You said it influenced the tone.
Absolutely.
Mm.
Those white spaces, they weren't just about what you see. They also fed into the story's whole mood, that introspective feeling.
I see, yeah.
Like the isolation that Tintin feels in the mountains.
Right.
The doubt he gets from people who don't believe Chang is even alive.
Yeah.
That internal struggle with faith and perseverance.
Oh, so that's where that comes from. Okay, so let's talk about Tintin's journey then, because we know he gets this news that his friend Chang was in a plane crash in the Himalayas, and everybody pretty much thinks Chang is gone. But Tintin, he's just unshakable. He's so convinced that Chang is still alive. What was Hergé trying to say with that? With that unwavering belief? I mean, it's almost superhuman, that kind of faith.
Well, this is where I think the story, it really moves beyond a simple adventure.
Yeah.
It becomes something deeper.
Okay.
Because Tintin's conviction, it isn't just about finding Chang physically. It's about something much more profound. It's about the nature of their friendship,
Oh, interesting.
a bond so strong that it defies logic, even death, in a way.
Wow.
It's about believing in something
Yeah.
with every fiber of your being, even when everyone else is telling you you're wrong.
Powerful stuff. It's that belief that drives him forward right through all the crazy stuff he has to go through.
Yeah.
Avalanches, climbs. I mean, he even has that encounter with the Yetis. And speaking of the Yeti, that's interesting because he's not your typical villain.
No, he's not.
The analysis actually points out that he becomes almost like a protector.
Yeah.
What do you make of that?
Well, it's kind of brilliant how Hergé flips our expectations, right?
Uh-huh.
Because here you have this figure, the Yeti. It's shrouded in mystery, often seen as a monstrous threat. And yet here, in this story, the Yeti becomes this symbol of the unknown that's not necessarily bad or evil. Like, it challenges us to think about what we fear and why.
I like that.
And maybe it's a way of saying, hey, look beyond the surface.
So are you saying that Hergé was maybe using the Yeti to get us to question our own assumptions? Especially about things that are different from us? Like, it's making me rethink all those horror movies where anything unknown is automatically bad.
Exactly. And this was 1960, remember?
Right.
So you have to think about the historical context. A time of global tension, cultural clashes.
Yeah.
Maybe Hergé was urging us to approach those differences, those things we don't understand, with a more open mind.
Wow, I never thought of it that way. So on the surface, we have this exciting adventure.
Right.
But underneath, we're dealing with some really heavy stuff. Faith, friendship, what it means to believe in something. It's almost like peeling back the layers of an onion.
Yeah, complex onion.
With each layer, we understand the story better, but we also understand Hergé himself better.
And that's what makes this particular Tintin book so fascinating.
Yeah.
It's deeply personal, right?
Yeah.
Reflecting Hergé's own struggles, how
Yeah.
his views were changing. But it also speaks to these universal human truths. There's another layer we haven't even touched on yet, and that's the symbolism.
Oh, right.
We were talking about those vivid dreams Hergé was having.
Yeah.
Well, those dreams, they don't just show up in the landscapes. They actually pop up throughout the story in some really interesting ways.
Oh, really? How so?
Well, what really struck you about those dream sequences in the book?
Well, I thought it was interesting how they were almost like premonitions.
Right.
It's like Tintin and Chang have this psychic link or something.
Such a deep connection.
It really shows how close they are. I mean, are we supposed to believe that friendship can really work like that? That it can go beyond physical boundaries and defy logic? That's a pretty big idea.
It is a big idea, but it speaks to those feelings we sometimes have about the people we're closest to.
Yeah.
That gut feeling that something's wrong, even if you can't explain it logically.
Yeah,
It's like Hergé is saying some bonds are so strong, so deep, that they operate on a different level, beyond our understanding.
I see. And here I was thinking it was just, a way to make the story more exciting. But this adds a whole other layer of meaning to their journey. But you know what else is a powerful symbol? The plane wreckage.
Oh, absolutely.
It's a stark reminder of the crash and, I guess, symbolically, the fragility of life itself.
Yeah.
But even in the middle of all that wreckage, somehow Tintin's hope remains.
It's a great point you bring up. That wreckage isn't just debris, it's a symbol of how our sense of certainty can be shattered, how we can suddenly lose control. Life just throws these things at you.
It does.
But in the face of that reality, Tintin's faith in Chang, it becomes a testament to how resilient we can be as humans. Our ability to hold on to hope, even when things are at their darkest.
That's so true. And it makes you wonder, how did Hergé manage to make that hope feel so real, so tangible?
Well, there's another visual element that plays a key role here.
Huh.
The Tibetan prayer flags.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Remember those?
Yeah.
Strung across the mountain passes, those vibrant banners.
Uh-huh.
They're not just decoration.
Right.
They actually represent hope, spiritual guidance, blessings even. They add another layer of meaning to Tintin's journey.
I always loved those prayer flags, but I never really considered their deeper meaning. They just added a kind of peacefulness to the story, even with all the danger. But I'm curious, how do you think different readers might interpret those prayer flags? Do they have one specific meaning, or could they be seen as, just symbolic?
That's a great question, and it really shows how clever Hergé was as a storyteller.
Mm,
He uses these symbols in a way that allows for different interpretations.
yeah.
Some people might see those flags and just think they look nice, while others might connect with a deeper, more spiritual meaning.
Right, right.
It's really interesting how one story can hold different meanings for different people.
So we've got all this going on, Hergé's personal life influencing the story, these universal themes he's exploring, and then this whole rich cultural backdrop that just adds another layer of complexity. You've really given me a new perspective on what I thought was just a simple adventure story.
And we've only just scratched the surface. There's so much more to unpack here,
Right.
especially when we start looking at how Hergé's storytelling evolved and the impact this book has had on culture.
Okay, well, hold on. Before we move on, I want to hear what's standing out to you so far, what's resonating with you the most.
Yeah.
What I find really interesting is this idea that Tintin in Tibet was kind of a turning point for Hergé.
Yeah.
The analysis talks about how this story was different from his earlier work, the stuff that was more political,
Yeah.
and how it shifts to a more personal, humanistic kind of storytelling. And it makes you wonder, did those personal struggles we talked about, did those play a role in that shift?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's a fascinating parallel.
Yeah.
As Hergé was dealing with his own internal stuff,
Uh-huh.
he created a story where the real conflict, the antagonist,
Mm-hmm.
isn't some outside force,
Yeah.
but it's all about the internal challenges that Tintin has to face.
Right.
He's pushing himself to the limit, literally climbing mountains.
Okay, but this is what I find really interesting. We don't have a typical bad guy in this story. There's no evil plot he has to stop or anything like that. So if we're saying the Himalayas themselves represent the antagonist,
Okay.
what does that tell us about the kinds of challenges Hergé was exploring in this book?
Well, I think it suggests a shift in focus.
Mm.
It becomes more about inner conflict,
Hmm.
personal growth.
Yeah.
The Himalayas, with their crazy terrain and unpredictable weather,
Right.
they become a metaphor for the obstacles we all have to face in life, the things that test us.
Okay, but we see obstacles in a lot of Tintin adventures.
True.
So what makes this one stand out? Is it just that there's no typical villain?
It's more than that. I think it has to do with Tintin's belief in Chang.
Okay.
Remember how strong that is?
Yeah.
It's not just about rescuing a friend. It's about clinging to hope even when everything's telling you to give up.
Mm.
It's about faith, the power of believing in something.
Right.
I think those are themes that we can all connect with on some level.
I agree. It's that internal struggle that really resonates. That fight to stay hopeful when things are tough. We may not all climb mountains, But we've all been there, right? Those moments where we have to dig deep and just choose to believe, even when it's hard.
Exactly. And, that brings us back to the impact this book had.
Oh, right.
The analysis mentions how it was praised for being respectful of Tibetan culture
Uh-huh.
and how it explores those universal human values we were just talking about,
Yeah,
which is pretty remarkable for a book from 1960.
it is.
Back then, people didn't always have a lot of understanding of other cultures.
Yeah.
How do you think Hergé managed to pull that off?
It's pretty amazing when you think about how some cultures were portrayed back then in movies and stuff.
Right.
But this book, it's not just respectful, it's almost like he's reverent toward Tibet.
Mm.
You can really feel his admiration for the people there, their strength, their connection to their land.
It shows how Hergé's worldview was changing.
Yeah.
He was becoming more aware of other cultures, more sensitive to them.
Right.
This is the same guy who, in his earlier works, sometimes relied on stereotypes.
Oh, yeah.
But Tintin in Tibet is a big step away from that.
So would you say that, in a way, this book was ahead of its time?
I think you could say that.
Yeah.
It shows that Hergé was more than just an entertainer.
Mm-hmm.
He was engaging with complex social issues, maybe even paving the way for other stories to handle those issues more thoughtfully.
It's really amazing to think about how this book came from a time when Hergé was going through so much personally,
Right?
and yet it had such a huge impact even all these years later.
It's true.
It's inspiring, all those themes of determination and compassion, respect for other cultures.
It goes beyond just inspiring other stories, though. I think it made people curious about Tibet.
Oh, yeah.
It's a part of the world that was very mysterious to a lot of people.
Right.
So the book, it encouraged them to learn more. That's the power of storytelling,
It
right?
is.
It can transport us, but it can also connect us to different cultures, help us understand each other better.
All that symbolism we talked about, those prayer flags, the empty landscapes, even the Yeti as a protector.
Yeah,
It all ties into that, doesn't it?
it does.
This idea of looking for a deeper meaning, a connection to something bigger than ourselves.
That's a great point.
It's like Hergé is saying, hey, look beyond what you see on the surface.
Exactly.
Find the extraordinary in the ordinary.
And recognize the things that unite us, even though we're all different.
So we've talked about the personal stuff, the symbolism, the cultural impact,
Right.
even the artistic choices that make this book so unique. But what does it all mean for us, the readers?
Yeah.
Why should we care about this story all these years later?
Well, I think it's because at its heart, it's a story about the human experience.
Okay.
It reminds us of the things that connect us all. It doesn't matter if you're an adventurer or not. You can relate to the struggles, the doubts, the belief that pushes Tintin forward.
It's that mix of adventure and deeper thinking you talked about earlier.
Yeah.
On the one hand, you've got this thrilling story, Tintin racing against time, facing danger at every turn.
Yeah.
But then there's this other side to it, this quiet reflection, this exploration of faith, doubt, what it means to have a true friend.
It's a powerful combination.
It really is. And it makes me think about those landscapes again.
Those vast landscapes.
Yeah, those huge open spaces, all that white, just the mountains and the prayer flags.
Beautiful but stark.
Exactly. They're stunning, but you're saying they're more than just a pretty background.
Oh, definitely.
Okay, how so?
Well, remember those dreams Hergé was having?
The white spaces.
Exactly. They find their way into the book visually in those Himalayan landscapes.
Mm-hmm.
And that emptiness, that feeling of isolation, it reflects what Tintin's going through internally.
So the landscape is like a mirror,
In a way, yeah.
reflecting his emotional state.
As he struggles with uncertainty, the fear of losing his friend.
It's almost like the landscape is a character itself.
You could say that.
The harsher the environment, the more intense Tintin's struggle becomes.
Right.
But there's also a sense of peacefulness in those open spaces.
There is.
It's kind of a contradiction, isn't it?
It is, and that contradiction is important.
Oh,
It speaks to what the book is really about.
which is?
Finding peace in the middle of chaos.
Hmm.
Realizing that even in the most desolate places, there's a kind of beauty
Yeah,
and a connection to something bigger than yourself.
I like that. Okay, so we've covered a lot.
Yeah.
The personal stuff, the symbolism, how the book impacted people, even the art.
Right.
But what does it all mean for us reading it today?
Yeah. Good question.
Why should we still care about this story?
Because it speaks to something universal, something we all experience.
Okay.
Those basic human truths.
Like what?
The desire to push ourselves,
Yeah.
to face our fears, to believe in the power of connection.
It's inspiring.
It is.
It reminds us that even when we feel lost, there's always a way forward.
And sometimes the greatest discoveries.
Are the ones we make about ourselves.
Exactly.
That's a great way to put it. So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with this thought.
Okay.
We've explored all these different aspects of Tintin in Tibet, but
Yeah.
ultimately, what you take away from this story, that's up to you.
It is.
It's shaped by your own experiences, what you believe, how you see the world.
That's the beauty of great stories.
Right.
They invite us to think for ourselves, to question, to find our own meaning.
So as you go back and reread Tintin Tibet with all this in mind, ask yourself what parts speak to you the most, what challenges you,
Good questions.
and how can you apply what you've learned to your own life.
I love that.
This has been fantastic, and I hope it's giving you a new appreciation for this book.
Me too.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep asking questions.
And keep diving deep.
That's what we're all about.